2023 has been a wild year in the book community with lots of controversies from Patrick Rothfuss, Georg R R Martin, Brandon Sanderson, Sarah J Maas, AI, Amazon, and in this video I want to go through the most notable controversies and rank them from minty to Indian spicy. So without further ado, let's get into the first controversy, Fourth Wing taking over fantasy. Well, to be honest, it's not really a controversy, but guys, why is everyone loving Fourth Wing? I don't understand. But let's get into the first proper controversy, and that is going to be Patrick Rothfuss' update on the Kingkill Chronicle and the whole fundraising debacle. Now, if you didn't catch it, then around 18 months ago, Patrick Rothfuss had a live stream where basically, if people donated money and the fundraiser reached a certain limit, he said that he would release the first chapter of the third book of the Kingkill Chronicles. And that goal was absolutely smashed. And afterwards, Patrick Rothfuss basically ghosted everyone and he didn't speak about this for around 18 months. So a lot of readers felt extremely cheated on. They felt that they were being scammed because he had promised to release the first chapter after, 12 years of waiting. And people had donated money and he didn't release it and he didn't talk about it or anything. But now around 1 month ago, he finally came out and he addressed the whole controversy. And he said that basically it had come down to mental health issues and that was the primary reason why he hadn't done it. And also the project has become too big and he had started editing the first chapter and so on and so on. Now initially when I saw this apology, I was like, actually this kinda makes sense even though I still think it's messed up. And I expected Patrick Rothfuss within maybe a couple of days to actually say chapter 1 is getting release date within a week or something. But it's now been a month and we still have no idea when we're getting that chapter, which is, bro, how are you going to come out and apologize for this whole controversy and then not actually address the problem, the fact that you haven't released a chapter? I really don't understand why he doesn't release it in the form it is now. It doesn't have to be finished. It doesn't have to be complete and perfect. Just release it because people have literally donated money and you even said you feel bad. The way you can get out of this is just by releasing this chapter. So yeah, this situation is pretty messed up. But if I'm gonna rate it from minty to Indian spicy, I would probably say it's a spicy one. But there are worse ones on this list. Now, one thing that is not controversial and actually usually is very wholesome is having a booktube channel, which leads me to today's sponsor, Skillshare. Now, Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of online classes and members, and it is truly a place to get inspired, learn new skills, and put them to work in impactful ways. Now, what really makes Skillshare unique is the fact that it has the largest online learning community for creatives with a massive depth and breadth covering topics such as illustration, graphic design, marketing, and it also has creative career focused classes, which can really help you in marketing, freelancing, or social media, such as having a booktube channel. And what I really appreciate with Skillshare is that it has a learn by doing approach to teaching, which is absolutely great. Now, when starting a booktube channel, there are so many things to learn. For example, how to create a thumbnail. And one class that really allowed me to learn how to create a beautiful thumbnail was the Create Irresistible YouTube Thumbnails with Canva by Ronnie Hermosa, which really helped me to understand the basics of how to create a beautiful and catching thumbnail. And guess what? I am still using Canva to this day for all my thumbnails. Now, there is a link in the description where the first 500 people that use the link will get 1 month totally free of Skillshare, so please go and check it out. Thank you so much for Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the video. Okay, next up we have Sarah J Maas secret chapters or bonus chapters that were added to random books. So I basically made a video about this and it's basically one of my best performing videos of this year. But basically, Sarah J Maas is coming out with a new book and she decided to write 5 additional bonus chapters, and instead of adding it for free on the website or adding it to one exclusive edition, these 5 chapters were added to 5 different special editions. So basically, if you want to read all of them, you have to buy the same book 5 times, which is absolutely crazy. And if you want to hear my full thoughts on this, then I made a full video just going through it. I kind of compared it to like if Lord of the Rings came out with an extended edition, but to actually see all the additional scenes, you had to buy the same DVD 5 times. That would be absolutely messed up, and that's basically what they're doing here. I think this is absolutely ridiculous. If anything, an author like Sarah J Maas that has literally sold millions of copies, I think she should give this out for free or at least keep all the secret chapters to one edition. It feels like a cash grab, but she hasn't done really like anything illegal. I just think it's a crappy way to treat your fans. So I'm also gonna rate this spicy. Alright, and then we also recently got an update from Georg R R Martin where he basically came out and it sounded like from last year, there hasn't been really made any progress on Book 6 in A Song of Ice and Fire. Now, there might have been some progress, he might have edited or something, but the page number has stayed the exact same for 1 year, and people went absolutely mad. For good reason, because it's been 12 years since book 5 came out, and Georg R R Martin, he seems to be working on everything except that 6th book. Now, I'm not sure if you're ever gonna get book 6, and to be honest, I'm not that surprised that he hasn't worked on the book, because it just seems like he doesn't want to work on it, so I'm gonna rate this mild. Alright, and then we had the controversy where Roald Dahl's children books were going to be re-edited to become more mainstream or more sensitive to different cultures. So some of the examples where they wanted to change some stuff were a line, for example, where it says, "You gone white as a sheet," they changed it to "You gone still as a statue," or "Cloud men became cloud people," and so on and so on. And all of this was basically done in the name of tolerance, because obviously we don't want to read these children books and make our children intolerant and so on. Now, my personal opinion is that I think it's absolutely appalling to go back and re-edit books to make them more vogue, if that makes any sense. And the funny thing about this is that people both on the right and the left, almost everyone came out and condoned this practice. Also, one thing that I find so ridiculous here is that publishing firms feel like they need to control or monitor what we read and so on. Now, if I read a book that has some stereotypes in them, for example, for my children, I don't have children, but if I had them, I would explain to them that today we don't use these terms anymore, or actually, this is very disrespectful for this and this reason. And it could be a great teaching lesson for me to actually teach my children why things were done in the past like this and why we don't do them anymore. And yeah, I just hate this practice. And I just think that Roald Dahl, he would be livid and angry if he actually heard that people have been attempting to change his own words. Now, the backlash was so massive that they actually backtracked and said they're not going to make any changes. But I think just this practice here is definitely Indian spicy. Alright, and then 5-6 months ago, we had this massive TikTok is ruining reading debacle, where there was a blog post or an article posted where this author basically said that the act of reading has become more popular than reading, and he was just talking about how TikTok is destroying reading and people are more obsessed of looking like readers than actually reading. I even made a video where I also talked about this, and the more I actually thought about this controversy, the more I'm thinking that this author, he wrote this article just to create some controversy. Because it feels so forced, right? So many people, especially young people, have gotten back into reading because of TikTok, because of BookTube. And so what, they're not reading classics or whatever, at least young people are reading. So I really feel like this controversy was almost made up, and I think that the author, he was probably really happy that people, especially on TikTok and YouTube, absolutely went crazy. So the reaction was strong, but I actually think that this is probably a minty controversy because it almost feels like it was made up. Alright, the next one is seriously spicy. I think already I'm going to tell you now, it is Indian spicy. A couple of months ago, an author called Jane Friedman, she noticed that books on Amazon were being sold in her name, and they were AI written, and people were selling books that had similar marketing as her, they were using her name. And then she went to Amazon and she was like, I have not written these books, these are AI written. And initially Amazon said, well, you don't have copyright over your own name, so that's not our problem, which is honestly so insane. The fact that Amazon didn't stand up for this author straight away and allowed this AI garbage not only to be sold on the website, but be sold in another author's name. It's just insane. Obviously, the backlash was so big, and one of the bigger author groups came out and condoned this, so Amazon actually backtracked. But the fact that they were willing to allow this in the name of sales is just, this is seriously Indian spicy, and it just shows all the issues and all the challenges we have with AI and business practices and plagiarism. It is just insane. And the fact that Amazon are quite willing to allow things like this to happen on their website as long as people don't push back on it is very, very concerning. So definitely Indian spicy for sure. And speaking of Amazon, we have to talk about the Brandon Sanderson and Audible controversy. So around 8 months ago, Brandon Sanderson basically came out and said, going forward, I'm not gonna sell my books on Audible anymore because Audible treats self-published authors and indie authors really badly by taking an obscene amount of the revenue from each sale in their own pocket and basically giving, I think, only around a third to the self-published authors, which is absolutely insane. Now, you can get some more revenue if you do I'm only gonna sell my book on Audible, but the revenue is still not great. It is absolutely insane that authors get more percentage revenue from from selling their books in a physical store, and a physical store has to pay its staff, has to pay for electricity, all of those bills, marketing and stuff like that. Then Audible, which is literally an online service. There is no way Audible has higher bills per book sold than a physical bookstore, but a physical bookstore is able to pay the author more than Audible. I have massive respect for Brandon Sanderson to actually raise this and actually taking a stand against Audible, because this is horrendous practice, and Amazon was created originally as an online bookshop. So Jeff Bezos, he should be on the side of the authors. It's just so sad. And authors, especially indie authors, they definitely deserve more. Now Audible has been doing this for absolute years, so it's not a new practice, but it's something that has come back to the forefront after Brandon Sanderson announced this. But I think that this is definitely a spicy controversy for sure, and I really hope that more authors will actually stand up against Audible, because yeah, this is absolutely ridiculous. Alright, obviously we have more AI controversies. So around 6 months ago, SPFBO, the self-published competition, had their annual cover competition where basically bloggers, they choose the best covers of the books that are competing that year. And the book that won was apparently an AI generated cover, which was against the rules, but there's just so much to the story because the author came out and he was like, no, this is not AI generated. And then people were like, yes it is. Then he went to his illustrator and the illustrator was like, no, this is not AI generated, here's evidence. Then people were like, well, here's evidence that it's actually AI generated. Then he went back to his illustrator and the illustrator just ghosted the author, deleted all his social media, which basically proved that this cover that had won the competition was actually AI generated. And there was so much controversy on Twitter about this. I mean, people were so angry because obviously AI is such a sensitive and hot topic. But I felt so bad for the author because it genuinely seems like he had no idea that this was AI generated because his own illustrator lied to him. But the sad consequence is that Mark Lawrence announced that the SPFBO cover competition was not going to go ahead in the future because he simply could not identify which covers were AI or not, and he didn't have the time to actually manage that. So once again, AI is leading to a major loss for authors, it's impacting indie authors, so it's really, really sad, and this is definitely a spicy controversy as well. Alright, we had 2 more controversies and another AI one. Clarkesworld, which every year have had a short story competition, had to close down the competition because they were being flooded by submissions where basically lots of the stories were AI generated. This is so sad. Think about this, like some of these authors have maybe spent days or weeks or months on a short story to submit it, and then they're just told the competition is not going to go ahead because the people simply do not have the time or energy to filter through and try to identify what is AI or not. Now, AI is not all bad, but in this time it is having so many negative consequences and impact on authors, and we really need to get to a place where we're really able to regulate how AI is being used, because at the moment there are very few beneficials for authors when it comes to AI, and it's really sad to hear about all of these competitions and books and stuff like being sold in their names. And yeah, I would also rate this controversy spicy. And last one, and this is not really a controversy, but I thought it was worth mentioning. One of the biggest influences on my reading taste, and actually one of the main inspirations for creating this channel, is Merphy Napier. And Merphy Napier very recently announced that her main channel from now on is not gonna be a book focused channel anymore, but it's going to be a manga focused channel only, that she will now focus on books on her secondary channel. So the channel that she created to talk about books is now turning into a manga only, and around a year ago she created another channel that is now gonna become the book only. I think that her reasoning makes absolutely sense because YouTube rewards having niches in like separate channels and stuff like that, but I also think that it tells us a lot about how hard it is to grow a channel within the fantasy niche when you get to a certain limit. We've seen Merphy Napier and also Daniel Green. Almost the only way they've been able to keep growing is by expanding to adaptations or manga or fantasy news and so on and so on. Now you can still make it big by only talking about fantasy, but I think that this move from Merphy Napier definitely shows that if you want to become huge on YouTube, then it's almost simply not possible focusing on fantasy literature alone. Now this controversial is definitely minted because it's not really a controversy, but it's just something I wanted to mention. So those are 10 book controversies in 2023, and I think that the AI Amazon debacle with Jane Friedman is definitely the spiciest one, and hopefully next year we will learn a bit better how to live with AI, and hopefully we'll get the next chapter in Kingkiller Chronicles and a release date for book 6 in A Song of Ice and Fire. So which of these controversies do you think is the spiciest of them all? Definitely let me know your thoughts, and thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. Now, if you want to support what I do here, then I do have a Patreon. Now, a reason why I created a Patreon was to find a new way to reinvest to the channel, because basically since I created my Patreon, I spent around 100% of my earnings to hire an editor to do a couple of videos for me a month. Now, since creating my Patreon, an editor has done more than 20 videos for me on my channel, so it makes a huge difference. Now, if you join my Patreon, you will also get some benefits. For example, you'll get a name in my videos like these guys. You'll also be able to join the exclusive Viking book club where every month we read one book together, and you might be the one to put the book forward. This month we're reading this book, and next month we're reading this book. You also get to vote on my next read, get access to exclusive videos like a wrap-up or even book reviews, and so much more. But this is totally voluntary, but all support is much appreciated.